Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Central Texas Life. Ann Harder here with you, and we have a unique opportunity to get a behind-the-scenes look at the television industry with a Hollywood casting director. It is a joy to welcome John Frank Levey to the podcast today. It's wonderful to have you here from Burbank, California.
I appreciate the invitation. I've never been to Waco, but my dear friend J.D. Hinton has told me lots about it.
Well, that's good. He is a dear friend of mine as well, and was so delighted that he was able to put us together so we could visit today about your new book. It's called Right for the Role: Breakdowns, Breakups, and Breakthroughs from 35 years of casting iconic TV shows. And that would include ER, China Beach, The West Wing. I mean, the list goes on and on of they are truly iconic shows. But I get the impression, John, that you didn't start out as a child thinking, I want to grow up and be a casting director.
No, Ann, I certainly didn't. In fact, when I was about 30, I got a directing fellowship at the Mark Taper Forum here in Los Angeles, in the most important equity theater in the Southern California area. And it was the first time in my life I'd ever found a casting director and found out what they did and how they worked. So it certainly was not a childhood dream, although I had been exposed through my mom to a lot of theater in New York City where I grew up. And so the storytelling arts were always of great interest to me. And then I was able to find the role I was right for.
And your dad's a journalist as well.
That's correct. Yes.
Right. So
my older brother is also a journalist. He wrote for the Washington Post for many years.
But you kind of caught the acting bug, right? So
I did. Yeah. Of course, as the book details, it was slightly fueled by my interest in a particular girl. And then another particular girl, and that seemed to be a theme. I was chasing acting while chasing girls.
Well, you're delightfully transparent in your telling of your life, and it's very beautifully organized from certain decades of your life, but you tell the story, and we are taping this during the week we've observed Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Tell them about your brush with greatness when you were a teenager and actually attended the March on Washington.
Yes, well, that Dr. King and I shared a dream. I was on a bus all night with members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, singing "We Shall Overcome" over and over again, and I would like to confess that "Sing Johnny One Note" was written for me. I'm not my speaking voice isn't bad, but I can't sing a lick. Well, and we got to Washington quite early in the morning, and the bus we were on parked near the memorial where Dr. King's stage was set up. And our group got just down off the corner, the stage right corner of the platform, and we sat there. And Dr. King was introduced, and I fell asleep.
Oh no! Just missed it by that much, as they say.
By that much. I was having my dream while he was having his way more important dream.
But you were there. I mean, you could truly say you were there. Well, I loved reading the very first thing in your book, Right for the Role, is written by your friend and colleague, John Wells. And he calls you a great casting director. Any comments about that? I mean, I know your affection for him is great as well.
Absolutely. Ann, I can't read that forward without crying.
Mm-hmm. I bet.
It just is so. When I asked John after all these years of collaborating with him to write the foreword for my book, I had I thought that he would say kind things about my work, but I was overwhelmed by what he wrote, and that goes actually for the last chapter in the book as well, which I think we called it "Other People's Memories." And it's a little bit like being at my funeral while still being alive, while all of these actors, writers, and directors that I've had the honor and privilege to collaborate with over all these years wrote their impressions of working with me and of being in a community with me. And they were similarly uh, amazing and well over my expectations.
Oh, absolutely. Names that everyone would know, things that folks have said about you. And because of your work and what you do in looking at an actor and determining is this going to be one of the 5 or 10 different headshots I pass along to possibly be selected for this role. I mean, it's life-changing if they get that part. And
I think the very first person who responded to my request is the wonderful Shanola Hampton, who played V on Shameless for 11 seasons, and whose audition was so forward that I was grateful that I had my colleague Melanie Burgess in the room with me, because otherwise I would have been too embarrassed to have any idea what to do next. But she wrote something like, "When I think of John Levey, I think of life-changing." It's kind of remarkable to look back and realize that I've had impact on people's lives, and that goes for the audience as well. A show like ER had real, tangible impact on a generation of people who went into healthcare professions, and also just in terms of disseminating good information
right.
about important things.
You mentioned that Amy Poehler said she was interviewed somewhere and said she had, during the pandemic, she downloaded and watched all of it again, the whole series again, and so that's where, being a part of something iconic, and we could use that word over and over and over, but I mean, really, they're classics now, these shows, and launch the careers of people like George Clooney. I mean, you can just go down the list. It's got to be so gratifying to you professionally to know that you've had that impact.
And that's why we included the lists of all of the performers.
Yeah, I love that.
In ER and also in West Wing. Oh, Aaron would be mad at me. It's The West Wing.
The West Wing.
Because, I had forgotten all of the people who had one scene in ER early on in their career. And when you look at that list, it's astonishing. And the great thing about casting and the great thing about working with John Wells is that it's all about collaboration and it's all about community. And, I never say I discovered or I started. We started people. We decided together that someone should get the job, and we are very grateful when they go on to do extremely well and make us look smarter than we are.
Well, I love the story about Leonardo DiCaprio, and you could have been kind of hard nosed, at least the production company, when he was ready to get out of his contract from that beginning role that he had, and you said no, that wouldn't have been the right thing to do, to hold him back.
I feel that way.
Yeah. Let's put to rest, right off the bat, if we can, almost off the bat, the casting couch. You say it should be called something else, not the casting couch.
I mean, it's part of the casting process, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it is almost never the casting director who is involved in inappropriate behavior. Uh, uh, I do tell a funny story about interviewing men in drag at one point, and a person came in with white fur cuffs on her red outfit, and afterwards she was a big gal, and she called herself Big Mama, and she said, if you're good to Big Mama will be good to you. And I politely said, no, thank you.
And Big Mama did not get the part, as I recall.
I don't believe she did.
I don't believe she did. Well, I found it fascinating to read about the beginning, your beginnings in this business. Again, one that sort of found you, but that women really played key roles as mentoring you in this process.
Yeah, they sure did. Casting originally was very much a female entry point for in the industry, and it was rare that there were men doing that job. Men often hired their assistants, who were frequently women, to check availabilities of actors, and that was the sort of beginning of casting. But and I think actually, in some ways, my being a male played a role in my being unique as a casting director. But yeah, my mom trained me how to deal with strong, complex, and maybe some people would say difficult women.
Well, and also your acting career, your acting, not career, but your training early on, because you would read in the roles during the audition process. I mean, I guess that never really occurred to me that, you and your colleagues are the ones that are getting the scene started. It's not just necessarily monologues that an actor would perform for you.
We do all of the reading. And
Yeah.
in the early part of my career, I read everything opposite every actor. Eventually, some of my associates were so good that I turned over. I mean, at a certain point, I did the men, and one of my female colleagues did the women's roles. And then eventually, in the most recent iteration of my staff, Tawny Tamietti, my incredibly able associate, reads with everybody. And she was a child actress and now a casting director. My other wonderful associate, Kim Wong, does all of the camera work, and in the new era where we record everything.
Yeah, I think you said maybe it was Ellen Barkin you were working with, and you were a little intimidated, and she complimented. I think it was Ellen Barkin that complimented your acting.
Yeah, because I also read at the table reading before we start shooting. We all gather together and read the script out loud so that the writers can hear it and make some additional rewrites, and so the actors can understand the dynamics of the scenes that they're going to have to shoot that week. And Ellen was very generous with me. I tended to read mostly the authoritative male parts.
Good. Whatever works. And speaking of that, as your career was getting off the ground, we did not have all this fancy technology, and you even got in trouble, I think, one time for using email. It was such a new thing, but you were ripping open envelopes with headshots and all that, and it was laid out. I'd picture, all over the floor, and you're sorting through all the. It's got to be a totally different critter these days.
Yes, it sure is, and much of it is a great benefit. I mean, we can now do things. We can see more people and go through our process with much more efficiency. But as usual with technology, something gained and something lost. We don't have, excuse me, we don't have as much human contact as we did in the pre-pandemic days, and the movement towards self-tapes and technology was already started, but it became the norm during the pandemic, which sadly isn't quite over. And I also am not sure that it'll ever go back to as much in person as it once was.
But I would think if you're casting, really key roles, you'd have to have some, be able to see that individual, and I don't know.
So much is possible on Zoom.
Yeah, well, that's true. You do tell a story about how you had to make those adjustments when you were doing a Zoom callback, and folks just had to figure it out. A lot of this has been that. I learned so much reading your book, Right for the Role. Let's talk about a little bit of the vernacular. Use trampoline. What does trampoline mean?
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a one-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach,
And I'm Mike.
and we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros, Foes, Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hi, this is Sarah,
And I'm Carter.
and this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're two Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and vinyl. So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
Well, I think that's my phrase. I don't know that it's commonly used, but for me, it's the it's the group of supporting players that our stars are able to jump on and reach higher heights, which is what a trampoline does.
Right.
On ER, as much as George and Anthony and Eric and Noah and Sherry, and then on and on and on with the people we added, were the stars. Those people that we saw almost every week who were nurses and EMTs and manned the front desk and were orderlies, they were an important part of the fabric that that supported the leads and gave them the opportunity to reach higher heights.
Yeah, and the guy bleeding on the gurney over there, and you just don't think about all of those folks have to be cast. You have to physically look at a headshot and go through the process.
Anybody who moans or groans or cries or screams or talks.
Of course, ER was such a huge hit. And of course, that was when a lot of hospital shows, when we still have a lot of hospital shows, but I think Chicago Hope was trying to come online, I mean, head to head with ER, and ER seemed to hold its own, let's put it that way, and to the extent that because of its massive success, you got a little profit sharing. And that, tell everybody that story. You say it's not something that's generally done.
It's not something that's ever done. I think most people, when they have $1, they put it in their own pocket. They don't put it in someone else's pocket. But Michael Crichton, the late wonderful Michael Crichton, and Steven Spielberg and John Wells were the three at the tippy top of the ER hierarchy community. And I guess the three of them didn't need every dollar. They were getting plenty, I guess. And so one day, John Wells' assistant called me on the phone and said, "Come on over to our offices where there's an important meeting about to start." And I said, "Damn, Susan, I'm busy. Do I have to come over there?" And she said, "Yes, you do." And I walked over there, and then John announced that there was going to be some profit sharing, and everybody got an envelope with their name on it. And as I was walking back from the meeting to my office, in fact, there was a prop guy about 20 yards in front of me who was holding a prop baby, a synthetic infant, by the foot. And I was sort of giggling to myself at the sight of it. And then I thought, well, I'm going to open this envelope and see, maybe it'll be $500. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was a whole hell of a lot more than $500. And I was able to buy the house across the street from my little house here in Burbank, California, where my mom spent the last years of her life.
That is precious. I mean, and life-changing for her as well because of their generosity. And let's face it, you played a big role in the success of that show, in that particularly when it's an ensemble. I mean, these folks have got to have chemistry, and you're one of the ones that's looking at these actors and going, now who's gonna be able to pull this off?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a testimony to the thing that my book is really about, which is the whole concept of community and collaboration, and finding your place in that, where you can create excellence, but where you can also create the environment for others to join the collaborative community and create excellence as well. And ER was a spectacular example of fabulous leadership and wonderful community and collaboration.
In that section of the book, ER, we've kind of been focusing on that. You said, I was terrified that it would mean, you had a fear of success. You said, I was terrified it would mean somehow I wasn't myself anymore. But you add your 60s values of fighting for equity and diversity and seeing yourself as both an individual and part of the whole, put those fears to rest.
Indeed. I felt that way, and I feel that way today.
And another thing that you said, that you're proudest. You were proudest, I think, of, if I can find it. Here we go. Casting people who are HIV positive, transgender, deaf, and or marginalized for any other reason has been the highlight of your career.
Yes, again, casting provides you with an opportunity to touch worlds that you might not normally do. I imagine your journalism career gave you that opportunity as well.
Sure.
Um, and it is we're all on a self-actualizing life journey, and the more experiences we have, the more diverse those experiences are, the greater the opportunity excuse me, for us to grow and change, and therefore contribute to whatever community we are fortunate enough to be part of.
Yeah. You also say the highlight of your career came in 2009 when you received the prestigious Casting Society of America's Hoyt Bowers Award for Career Achievement. Of course, 4 Emmys and also the Artios Awards. And I know you don't get into a career for what kind of accolades you can receive, but that's a pretty proud, important moment for you as well.
Sure. Anytime your peers tell you, attaboy, that's a good thing, because they're the ones that know what it takes to do whatever it is we're doing, and when you get the respect and admiration of your peers. But as you just said, it certainly isn't something. Nobody goes into casting to get attention, and then oddly enough, I've had more than my share of attention. And I can't deny that riding in a limousine on the way to the Emmys with a bottle of champagne is actually a hell of a lot of fun.
I bet it is. I bet. Well, you had some really funny anecdotes in your book too, like the time you made a clown cry.
Yes. Oh gosh. And I got eviscerated in an early chat room where a friend of mine was there for making a clown cry. She was late for her audition, and she was in full clown regalia. And I went out, and I thought kindly said to her that I was terribly sorry, but that they had chosen someone for the role, and that she was, after all, 45 minutes or so behind schedule, and maybe we'd have another opportunity to meet in the jungle of show business. And she burst into tears. And her makeup ran.
Oh my goodness! Well, and you told him an actor who went through some pretty dramatic gyrations before starting, and just some of the things that you also encountered a very well-known actor who chided you for rushing him during the audition process, and in each of these cases, the role went to someone else. you do kind of have that power. What would you say if an actor is coming to you, Mr. Casting Director? What is it I need to do when I go into that audition? Do you have any advice for somebody?
Sure. I'm if I write simple and real on my pad of paper next to your name after your audition, you've done what I want. I've been very fortunate to work on projects where the genre was simple and real, well written, real people. And ER and China Beach before it, and NYPD Blue and other shows, St. Elsewhere, moved the television landscape into a more real arena.
Yeah.
And so I always value actors who aren't acting up a storm, pushing past what they believably have connected to. So I'm a great proponent in simple and real.
Well, and
it's the way Frank Sinatra sang a song.
Exactly. So the challenges you have, it's more than one would think. For example, I think as Animal Kingdom, you were casting it, and you had to have all these actors had to kind of look like they were related, and that's got to get a little bit tricky.
Yeah, that does get a little tricky. Fortunately, in Animal Kingdom, they all had different fathers. They just had
Well,
a
that's
mother.
true.
So
That helped.
We could stray from her genetics a little bit.
Well, let us talk about some of the great successes that you had. Just off the top of your head, some of the actors that come to mind that really got huge breaks thanks to shows that they were on. Rob Lowe, for example. I think of him.
Well, Rob certainly had already had a very, very big career as a young man, but Sam Seaborn on The West Wing certainly reinvented him, and he has never looked back.
Right.
He's been doing a great deal of wonderful work for all the years since The West Wing. But early on The West Wing cast, I didn't know who Allison Janney was before we saw my colleague Kevin Scott saw a demo reel of her work that was both smart and funny, which was what The West Wing required. And I take great pride in how spectacular her career has taken off and sustained. And, someone like Jessica Chastain, who was at Juilliard when I first saw her at the showcase that they do every year. And I introduced her immediately to John Wells, and we threw a bunch of money at her to be exclusive to John Wells Productions for 1 year. Her first job was on ER, and now she's an Academy Award at the very least nominee. I think she won one already as well.
I think she did, yeah.
Lucy Liu, Noah Wiley, Sean Hattasey. They're just a huge number of people that I've been fortunate enough to meet early on who, as I said earlier, went on to do such great things that I look better than I am.
Well, I love the fact that Rob Lowe praised you in your book for the fact you have both an eye for talent and a love for talent. I mean, you respect people. It's not just a meat market, I guess, maybe.
No, not at all. Acting is hard. People think it's easy. People who don't know think it's easy. You just get up there and, say the words and don't knock over the props, and, someone shoots it and edits you to make you look good. It's hard, and it's also personal. There's no other way but to take it personally. If you get the job or you don't get the job, or you get fame and fortune or you don't get fame or fortune, it's just you that's there on the screen. And being able to and being willing to bring your own vulnerability and your own sensitivity and your own pain, as well as your own joy and all of the rest of it, to your work is it's hard. I know that because writing the book, I had to be willing to be vulnerable and tell my simple, true story. And that wasn't easy. And that was something that happened because the woman I wrote the book with, Trudy Roth, created an environment for me to feel safe, and also to recognize that if the story was going to have any impact, it had to be not just a bunch of anecdotes about famous actors.
Right. But that is a fun part of it, I will have to say. You're very clear, since we're sort of talking about the auditioning process, about when you would offer adjustments. And it made perfect sense. Sometimes you would, sometimes you wouldn't. Explain that. Adjustments meaning suggestions maybe or whatever.
Yeah. In both cases, the actor should not strategize about what's behind my either giving an adjustment or not giving an adjustment. I think I say in the book, I might give an adjustment because you're fascinating, but wrong for the part, and I just want to see what your muscle is like. what your range is like, what your ability to take a change in direction is like. And I might give an adjustment because you're absolutely right for the role, but you made a choice that was not right. And I might be able to help you make a choice that will help you reveal the character and their inner life. I might not give an adjustment because what you did was very nearly perfect, and I don't want to mess it up. And I might also not give an adjustment because you're not fascinated.
Okay, the whole gamut, basically. No, I love that. It was, you're very clear in what you write. Well, unfortunately, our time has come to an end, but I like to end these visits with a similar questionnaire to the one the late great James Lipton would use on his TV show Inside the Actor's Studio, and it is a shameless ripoff, but I mean, really, and I will say anecdotally, you mentioned having met James Lipton's ex-wife, and it was a rather uncomfortable moment.
Yeah, I'm forgetting who that is. Remind me.
Well, I'm trying to remember what her name was, but basically, she you were at a dinner party. It was you'd gone to.
Oh, Nina Foch, yeah.
And she was pretty ugly to you. I thought, oh my gosh. Anyway, all that aside, what is your favorite word?
Community.
Yeah, I can buy that for sure. What's your least favorite word?
Narcissist.
Very good. What turns you on creatively, emotionally, or spiritually?
Collaboration.
Yeah, what turns you off?
Selfishness.
Very good. What sound do you love the most?
Quiet.
I've heard that before from my guests, for sure. What sound do you hate?
I'm reminded of the father in Peter Pan, who, when Wendy says she wants to bring all the lost boys home with her, he says, "Think of all that noise."
Yes. What other profession would you have liked to have tried?
I would have liked to have been a therapist for a while until it was too painful.
Yeah. What job do you would not want to do at all, ever?
A job where people have strict rules about your demeanor and your behavior. I would be a terrible soldier. I'd be an awful police officer. And a job that scares me is the job that my dad and my brother did, which is to be a journalist. You guys have way more power than casting directors.
Oh.
You just look any way you want.
Well, finally, when you arrive at the pearly gates, what do you hope to hear said to you?
Welcome home.
Wonderful. John Frank Levey, and you later kind of added the Frank. That was your mom's maiden name, correct?
That's correct.
And it was not John Levey, John Frank Levey, and you are a perfect delight, and I am so grateful that we could spend some time talking about Right for the Role. Breakdowns, breakups, and breakthroughs. You will be delighted with this read. It really, really is a fun look at some amazing television days and an amazing career. And you're still busy. You're still working, and I love that.
Yes, I am. And I hope to be working on something quite exciting in about a month, which I can't talk about yet.
Oh, okay. Well, we will be anxious to hear at some point. But thank you so much for your time, John. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Ann. This was delightful for me as well.
Oh, good. And get the book. I mean, it's a great book. And thank you guys for joining us on Central Texas Life. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.